Um, I want to do a quick video just to show you how to render out an animation. So once you have completed your animation in After Effects and you want to render this out into a movie, this is how you do it. So the first thing you want to do is click inside your sequence that you want to render, and then you can go up to Composition, Add to Render Queue. And what this does is allows you to have multiple compositions that you can render all at one time. It has a render queue all within here. So a couple things that are different is usually folks will do the drop-down boxes, but actually what you have to do on After Effects is click the text. So right here under Render Settings, if I click that blue text, it'll pop up a window to ask, and you want to make sure that your time span is work area only or length of comp. In hours, for comp 1 in this example, my composition is 10 seconds long, but I could make it just the work area. For example, this line up here is you're able to zoom in and zoom out on this line and move things around to see your timeline. You can also do that down here with the mountaintops from zoomed out to zoomed in. The line below that is your work area. What this allows you to do is have a composition that's nice and long, but you could trim your work area to only be now 1 second. And if I were to go back to my render queue, click Best Settings, I could change it from length of comp, which is 10 seconds, to work area only, which I only defined as 1 second. For me and for you guys, I'm going to go ahead and leave this animation as 10 seconds. Kind of up to you how you want to work it. But for us, I'm going to click on Best Settings and make sure it is length of comp, which is 10 seconds long. You can see your duration right here. Also, the other settings you have are quality. You can leave these alone because it should render at full resolution, and that's what you want it at. So length of comp, full resolution, and best quality. After you have that, you can click OK. Next, you can click on Output Module, Lossless. Click the text, and this will pop up a menu to show you what kind of render format you'd like. For us, we're all probably working off of a Mac computer, so I'm going to render mine to QuickTime. If you're working off of a Windows computer, you can do any kind of movie file. You can do AVI, whatever your native format is. For me, it's QuickTime. After you pick your file format, this is probably going to output as an MOV, you can click Format Options, and that will let you define what codec you're rendering as. Right now I have animation. Instead of animation QuickTime, I'm going to allow it for H.264. Fun fact, under the QuickTime codecs, animation is the only one that does allow you to output RGB and alpha. If you're curious what alpha is and you know what that is, go ahead and use it. If you don't, you can just leave it on RGB. Quick example of that, if I go back to my first comp, all this black right here is actually transparency. If I click this button here, that toggles my transparency. So if I render this movie with an alpha, I'm going to be able to put this moving box over another piece of video. If I render it without an alpha, it's just going to render like that. For me, I don't need this over anything, so I'm just going to click Lossless, make it a QuickTime, and I'm going to change my format to H.264 and click OK. So now I've got QuickTime, H.264, and audio output says audio will be output only if the composition has audio. Pretty nice to have that auto option, but you can always have it on or off permanently. Up to you. I'll leave it on auto. Click OK, and that's done. And finally, you can click on the text here for output to, and that will define where this movie is going to output to. In this example, of course, you always want to render something to your main drive so it renders faster without many errors. And then you can drag the finished movie file over to your backup drive, your archive drive, your jump drive, anything like that. For me, I'm going to render to my Documents folder. It's going to save as the same name as my composition, or I can name it something different. I'm just going to keep it Comp1. And once you see that it's going to save as and render out to a movie file, you know you've done your job. Now that we've defined these parameters, the final thing you're going to do is click Render, and that is going to render your movie frame by frame by frame all the way to the end. It shows you your elapsed time, and if it's a very long render, it'll give you an estimated remaining time. Once it's fully done, it should make a sound like a bring chime. Well, I guess my volume's turned down, but there you go. So now you can see that it's rendered out. You can use the render queue if you want to do multiple versions of your composition into different render files. So let's check and see what we have. Under my Finder window, I can go to my Documents folder, and in there, I've got Comp 1. That's my movie. I can double click on it to open it in QuickTime, and you know that is something you can upload to YouTube, or you can take this movie file and send it to friends and they can view it. That's all fine and dandy. The last thing we're going to do is, let's say we're completely done with this project and we want to archive it and package it up. The way to do that, again, if you've imported anything into this project window, that's pictures, music, other movie files, to include all those in your composition, you have to package it up for archiving. If you don't, notice mine is only consistent right now of a comp and a red solid. That's all internally. I could just go to File, I could save as, if you don't have anything imported here, and you can just save it in your Documents folder again, or your jump drive, whatever. That AEP file is going to contain everything internal. So for this one, I'm just going to do comp 1. Of course, yours would probably be dash your name, or in this case, boxy dash your name. I'm going to change that. Boxy. And you can save that. That AEP file is going to have everything you need. But if you've imported anything, or you want to do any special effects that you've imported anything at all, you're going to have to go up to File, and you will go down to Project Settings. Oops, let's cancel that out. File. Let's try that again. You're going to go to File, Dependencies, and this is where you collect files. So File, Dependencies, Collect Files. Click on that. And this is where it's going to collect all source files. If I had any in there, it would include them all. Right now it's doing none, but you could do all. I'm just going to choose that. And all you need to do is reveal collected project in Finder when finished. That'll show you right where it is when you're done. What you're going to do is next collect all your files, and it's going to ask where do you want to collect everything that you've imported. Where is it going to package that? For me, I'm going to package it to my main drive, my desktop, or my Documents folder, and then again just move the entire packaged folder onto a backup drive or jump drive for archiving. So this is going to be saving as boxy-en in a folder. I'll save that. It's going to go through and look at this whole thing and collect it. And you saw it was pretty fast because there wasn't a lot of stuff or anything really I had imported. And it popped up in Finder to show me exactly where it was. So it's in my Documents folder, boxy-en folder, and inside that folder, if I had any imported things like movie files, music, anything at all that wasn't generated in After Effects, it would all be listed right here. And this entire folder you could right-click and compress if you wanted a zip file to upload to yourself, anything at all, or you can just drag this whole thing over to a different drive. Alright, that's how you package your finished project for archiving, and also how you render out a movie that you can send to clients or upload to YouTube. Thanks for watching and enjoy your projects.